This is the Cigar Snob Podcast, and I am Nick Jimenez. The cigar industry is dominated by families whose tobacco stories begin in Cuba, but one company in particular stands out as not only having a deeply Nicaraguan identity, but also having a history that is tightly woven into that of its home country. In this episode, you'll hear Erik Calviño's interview with Alejandro Martínez Cuenca, the man behind Joya de Nicaragua. Alejandro dives deep into the history of Joya, the tumultuous political climate that surrounded it, how it came to be the official cigar of the White House, and what lies ahead for the brand. You won't want to miss this interview, but before we get into that, a word from our sponsor, Zafra Rum. At Cigar Snob Magazine, we know that man cannot live on water alone, which is why we keep a healthy stockpile of Zafra Rum at the office. I'm Nick Jimenez, senior editor of Cigar Snob Magazine, and I'm here to tell you that every time we crack open a bottle of Zafra Rum, we are impressed. In fact, I'm kind of hydrating with Zafra Rum right now. It's unlike anything else, in part because of Zafra's small batch approach. They use only hand-cut sugarcane and process it into top-grade molasses, distill in column stills, and ferment in a proprietary, locally grown yeast. The rum master then ages the virgin rum in carefully selected bourbon oak casks. The end result is a rum masterpiece that's great for top-shelf cocktails, drinking it on the rocks, or even just drinking it neat, which, by the way, is what we did when we paired this in the pages of Cigar Snob Magazine with the Oliva Serie B Melanio, but it goes great with just about any cigar. Here's what we had to say about Zafra Rum. Quote, the rum introduces smooth, honey, caramel, and molasses flavors that start to complement the coffee, chocolate, and spice from the cigar. Zafra also received an exceptional 95-point rating from the Beverage Tasting Institute, so we are not the only ones who are crazy about this stuff. It's just another one of their prestigious awards. Ask for Zafra Rum at your favorite retailer, restaurant, or bar. Make sure you follow them on Facebook and Instagram at Zafra Rum. That's Zafra Rum. Zafra Rum. Always drink responsibly, and remember that there is no rum without Zafra. All right, now here's Erik Calviño's interview with Joya de Nicaragua's Alejandro Martínez Cuenca. So take us back to the beginning of Joya de Nicaragua, right? So its beginnings, its genesis. Why did these men decide to start that factory or this company? And just give us a feel for what it was like at that point.
Well, don't forget, 50 years ago, in Central America, there were not known manufacturing operations of cigar manufacturing operations. In fact, some years earlier, for the first time, and it was 1963, 62, 63, when some people from Cuba came to Nicaragua, and they brought with them some seeds, and they tried to see in what areas of Nicaragua it would be convenient to see and test the production of tobaccos, and that some of those were failed efforts, until there was a guy, which by the way happened to be a relative of mine, Roberto Martinez, and I talked about him because other producers have talked about him, and I never mentioned it with my words. He was working very closely to the president of Nicaragua at that time, and he was in charge of the relation with IDBD, Inter-American Development Bank, and he had the initiative to bring to the bank the idea, why don't we finance some of the efforts of some Cubans coming to Nicaragua, flying from Cuba because of what is happening in Cuba, and let us give support so that we can push the industry in Nicaragua, if Nicaragua is able to produce tobaccos. And that's how it all started. Through that effort, Roberto was able to convince the president to have that special program, and that special program meant that anyone who applied for funding for any production project of tobacco, they would get a couple of years moratorium, so they wouldn't have to pay immediately. They would pay it on the third year on, and with a very low interest rate. So that's how everything started. In the case of Bermejo and Camacho, they were very entrepreneurial guys, in spite of not having been in Nicaragua before. And they went to the bank and said, I want to start. I tested some seeds in Jalapa. I tested some seeds in Esteli. And so they say, we'd like to apply for the credit. And the credit was granted to them, and that's how they started planting tobacco in Jalapa. Okay,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So they started a tobacco planting operation, but that still doesn't talk about a factory yet.
Not
right.
yet.
So this is just a growing operation. And was the end goal of these guys, and maybe you can't answer that, but was the goal to sell tobacco to?
It was basically when they applied, the reason that they put for thinking that their project was going to work is that there were companies in Tampa ready to buy all the tobacco that could be produced once they tested the quality of the tobacco. And the first year, obviously, that was the 63, I think, or 62, and that was the year when they started sending samples of the tobaccos, and from then on they expanded their production to the point that in 1967 they had a huge production of tobacco. And for some reason, I haven't yet reviewed it from this end, why Tampa stopped buying as aggressively as it was buying the tobaccos from Nicaragua. There is a limbo of information for me, which I have not been able to yet fill it. But apparently, as any production cycle, also tobacco had a cycle very similar. And 67 was a year when they said, well, they don't want to buy so much, so what do we do? And we have a loan to pay. So they said, why don't we roll it? We know how to roll it. And let's try to get some people and put a rolling operation. And from then on, February 1968, they decided to open a shop right in the old, in a small little shop downtown Esteli, and that's when they started rolling it. The next question was...
the lack of demand from Tampa spurred these gentlemen to start a factory.
Exactly. And the question is, what happened to the cycle of tobaccos in the United States at that time that forced them to stop buying so much of what they were buying, that created an opportunity for these guys to come up and start rolling the cigars themselves. Question next was, once we make this thing called a cigar, what name do we give it? And there is a whole discussion, in 1967, of whether the cigar should be called one way or the other, And in fact, they even sent some sample of the other name, It didn't fly. It didn't really catch the imagination of people. It didn't sell. So they reviewed it, and it was in February 1968 when they decided to send the first shipment of Joya de Nicaragua. Joya, which is translation for jewel, had been in discussion many times. They had the study with Hoja de Nicaragua, Olla de Nicaragua, and everything, always Nicaragua. But, because he was trying to get an identity, no one knew about Nicaraguan tobacco, so they put that as an ingredient in the brand name, but they couldn't find the first word until someone told them, why not Joya? That's how Joya came into picture.
And what was the other name?
Well, you had Hoja de Nicaragua, and you had Hoyo de Nicaragua. Hoyo de Nicaragua.
Yeah,
that was awful, It would look Hoyo.
Of course.
It wasn't a name.
That Hoyo only works in Hoyo de Monterrey.
Hoyo de Monterrey, that's it.
It looks terrible otherwise.
Yeah. So, and then another names, which I don't...
So we finally land on Joya de Nicaragua.
Joya de Nicaragua. And here you are. The first shipment comes to a company. They had already met with the Oppenheimer group.
That's right.
And they were the ones bringing in the cigar. And for some reason, the cigar ends up, in very prestigious places. Like I have a box of cigars from 1971, which was rolled in 1970 most likely, and went to the market and was given to an actor who was working in a movie, which at the end of the movie, the director gives them 2 boxes. One to this guy, his name is Dean Jones, of course, that's the name.
Okay.
Dean Jones used to be an actor acting for Disneyland, Disney World movies. He was in MASH. You remember? That was a long time.
Yeah.
You are too young
No.
to remember
No,
all
I
those
watched
things.
MASH as a kid, for
MASH,
sure.
but MASH had been for many years, and he was one of the acting partners in MASH. And this guy, the director, gives Dean Jones a box of cigars, which he never smoked. He never smoked it. In fact, I am smoking that cigar 50 years later, or 48 years later.
So how does that box end up in your possession?
That's the very interesting thing. I had a friend here in Miami, and one day he calls me, Alejandro, someone inquired about you. I'd like to know whether I can give them your name. There happens to be a lady who is inquiring who was the owner of Joya de Nicaragua. When she called me, he says, I didn't quite make sense of what she wanted. So, well, I have something for him which I want to give to him. I say, what is this? It's a box of cigars with, by the way it was, I haven't seen the pictures, but according to her, this movie, the movie was done in 1971, and so it must have been one of the early cigars ever coming to the United States. So, oh, I like that. Try to get pictures, see if that is real or what, or it's just a scam or something like that. So he goes back very diligently, gets in contact with her, gets some due diligence work first, find out that she was the real wife of this gentleman who is very sick in hospital. In fact, he passes away a year and a half later, and she tells him, my friend, what the story was. At the end of the movie, he came home. He went to his library and put the box, sealed in like this, cellophane, at the end in a corner. He never touched it. And now, years later, she's cleaning his table, his library, and he bumped into that box.
Yep.
And immediately remember that she has seen, I don't know, a report or something about Joya de Nicaragua. Wow. And how she gets hold of him is still
a mystery.
A mystery, you know, a mystery. And so we got the box. When I said to my friend, ask her how much she wants for the box. It's priceless, she said. I don't want any money. I just want you to hold it and have it. That's all. Of course, I sent her some personal gratification, which wasn't a big sum, but she didn't want any money. She just wanted to give it to us. How that happened, I don't know. How did he get hold of, or how she got hold of my friend, I don't know. It happened. The universe does those things around.
That's amazing.
And it does it very so common that we don't perceive, you know, the strength of how unity exists among all of us.
Yeah.
You know, unexpected events appear every time.
Yeah. And so there's also another little subplot to that story, which is when you guys opened the box, you found the inspector, right?
That was amazing. That's another story which every time in fact, I written about it, okay? I written a note on that because it was the most amazing experience on the personal basis I ever lived, you know. Well, the box arrives in Managua, and I'm about to get off to Spain. And in Spain, at that time, I have some people who had loaned me money to buy the company. So I bring the box with me to Spain. I didn't open it exactly like this.
Exactly how she sent it, that's how you have it,
That's how
and you
I got
leave
it,
to
and
Spain.
I leave to Spain. I go with the box. Everybody tells me, including my wife, why do you want to carry a box to Spain and then come back with the box? You know, it's going to use more luggage space. And no, I want to show it to them. You know, okay. So I go to Spain, come back to Nicaragua after the trip to Spain. They're all amazed at seeing the cigars. I had taken in Spain the cellophane off. Okay,
Yes.
but I did not want to break the seal.
Got it.
So I say, I want to keep that moment when I go back to Managua to share it with the people in the factory. So I go to Esteli, coming back from Spain, and I call a meeting, my executives. And now, among the executives is a guy who, when he was 15 years old, he came to start rolling cigars in Joya de Nicaragua. So I come up and a big discussion. My manager, Lionel, who is he's very realistic, I would say. I won't put any other word. Very realistic. I don't think, doctor, you're going to see anything there. It's too many years, hasn't been kept correctly. By that time, he had not noticed that it was sealed in cellophane. No, it's not going to work. Well, you want to bet? Yes. No, I don't like to bet.
Let's clear. So by it's not going to work, he means the cigars are not going to be smokable.
They're smokable.
Yeah, they're going to be
nothing
destroyed.
is going to be there.
Yes,
probably.
that's what he thinks.
Yeah, that's what he thinks. And he says, well, let's bet. No, I don't like to bet for reasons that I don't like, he said. But let's bet. I bet $100 to you. I take $100, put it on the table. I bet that we're going to find a surprise, that we're going to find a splendid cigar still as it left this factory years. Well, that was 2007, 2007 probably.
2007 is when you did this.
When I brought this.
So yeah, 37 years.
Yeah, 37. That's what we're going to see. We're going to find a good cigar. So the other guy is already playing with the box. He's looking at it, and I looked at my side and I saw him very concentrated on what he was seeing.
At the bottom of the box.
At the bottom of the box.
So this is another executive, not Lionel.
No, Lionel is another executive who has a number, which I didn't know, that at that time, when he came in, that was a practice that Francisco Bermejo had introduced in the factory, which stamped the number that he would give the roller, so that cigar is rolled by that guy. Okay? Yeah. And when I saw that, I look at him and start seeing his face changing, and suddenly he's crying. I looked at him and said, "What happened, Alberto? What happened to you?" He said, "No, nothing. No, something is happening."
Yeah, your face is changing.
His face is changing. You have tears in your eyes. Yeah. I said, "Oh, he brought me some memories." Is that right? Yeah. You know, Dr. Cuenca, this is the number with which I was baptized in this company. So it means these cigars that are in this box were all rolled by me. No kidding. Are you kidding? Are you kidding?
Yeah.
At this time, we haven't even opened the box. He is playing with the box.
Yeah.
And this guy has a bet of $100, which hasn't yet put the other $100. So I'm looking and saying, let's open this, and I open the box. And there are 25 most beautiful cigars. Only the paper was a little bit torn, okay, everything. So I opened it and I said, we're going to do the following. We're going to take one of the cigars in the back of this box, so we don't touch any of the cigars in the front. And we will replace that with one of the cigars of the similar kind that we are presently making, okay? But we are going to smoke this and we will share it all. So I light the cigar. I started lighting the cigar. Start burning, delicious. But I have never seen a cigar with such a white ash, all the way from the moment we light it to the moment we decided, now let us open it up to see what is inside. Yeah. Okay? It was all like snow. Okay? So I turn it around, we all smoke it, and I looked at the guy who had lost $100, said, when are you going to pay me? That's the story.
That's amazing. So let's now, that was a little side track. Let's go back to that time in the company in the 70s where you said it was being distributed in high-end places.
Yeah.
It was also at this point, or I should say, at what point does it become the cigar that the president gives, right? Because at one point, and is it still the case today?
Yeah.
Still the case. So when there was a dignitary coming to Nicaragua,
they will receive
that was the gift.
That was the gift.
So give us a little bit of feedback on how.
Well, there is an amazing story, friend, that I have repeated it. But most important, what I want to emphasize, all of these stories are engraved in one single concept. The most Nicaraguan authentic cigar is Joya de Nicaragua. Okay, and let me say why. When it was 1971, the president of Nicaragua was Anastasio Somoza, was known as a very rude, very dictatorial, as they were in Latin America at that time. And because of politics, the White House neither the State Department had ever invited a president to the White House.
Nicaraguan president.
A president of Nicaragua, I meant, except the father of this guy, who happened to be, that was the 1940s, when he was president still, is in the history of United States diplomatic encounters when they decided to invite the father of this guy, the State Department said, how are you going to invite Mr. President Roosevelt? How are you going to invite this SOB to the White House? He's such a cruel guy. He looked at them and said, but don't forget, it's our SOB. Because they had put him in power in Nicaragua.
He's our SOB.
He's our SOB. So the son went to West Point, and
the son, now we're talking Anastasio
now,
Somoza.
and the son of this president was Anastasio Somoza's son, who had studied and graduated at West Point University, at the West Point Academy. And since they were celebrating 25 years, President Nixon at that time decided that he would invite that son of Somoza, old son, because he was a friend of him. They went together at the academy. Okay, so they go to the White House. He goes to the White House with a tour of other people, government officials that accompanied him, who are the ones relating the story, by the way. So this is not a fabricated story by someone. And Nixon takes him for dinner, and then he asks him to pass over to the green room to go for the ritual of lighting a cigar in the green room. That was a ritual which established there. It used to be done with Cuban cigars, but then they ran out of it, and they were looking for, which I will tell something else about it, how it got there. So Somoza is sitting there, and he is with President Nixon, and suddenly, somebody comes in and he offers them coffee, offers them cognac, offers them cigars, and to the surprise of Somoza, that the cigar that is being offered to him, it was a Joya de Nicaragua cigar. He looked at it and said, but that's from Nicaragua. Yes, Mr. President, Nixon says. This cigar has been here in the White House since the earlier administration. But now it's our official cigar, Mr. President. The official cigar of the White House. We use it in all this ritual. Good. Then my curiosity started to build when I read and heard about the testimony of what had happened. How did Joya de Nicaragua get into the White House? Okay. It happened that the sommelier was a Swiss guy whose name I won't say it, not because there is anything about him, it's because I don't remember the name. It was a very Swiss name, and I don't want to make the same mistake I made with the actor. And this guy is in Las Vegas for a convention, and he decides to walk out of the hotel into a little shop that he saw cigars in front of the hotel. Don't ask me which hotel was that, because I'm trying to locate it yet, okay? And he walked in and walks into that place, but I heard many people, by the way, who claimed that their shop was the one.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. So not to get into that discussion, he walks in and he says, what do you have new in cigars? And the guy says, well, listen, I just received this cigar from Nicaragua. You want to taste it? Yes, let me taste it. So he lights it up there, okay? He says, that's good. Do you have a box? Yes, I'll take the box. He is not identifying himself who he is.
Yeah.
So he's the sommelier of the White House. Okay, he chooses the wine, champagne, the cigars, the rum, and whatever. Okay, so he buys the cigars, takes them to the White House, and he asks people to smoke it. So this is very good. It doesn't envy anything else we had before. So they brought Joya de Nicaragua as the official cigar in the Nixon time, but before he was basically filling in a gap that had been left because the other cigars could not be there anymore. So this replaced the other cigars.
That's fine. So the sommelier did did what consumers do on a daily basis in cigar shops every day, which is what's new.
What is new? What is new and what is good?
Yes. And so the lesson to the cigar retailer is, don't ever underestimate the guy coming in asking what's new. He may take him to the White House.
Exactly. Don't underestimate it. That's something to learn. Don't underestimate anyone, because the world is around. It goes around, and everything comes back. So keep good.
That's
friendship
incredible.
Always.
Yes.
You know who is going to be next.
So then, now let's move a little bit down the line.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a company that you've had a relationship with now for 10 years, 20 years?
We are celebrating also 10 years of our relationship with Drew Estate. And it was 2008 when we initiated our business relation, where we gave them the exclusive distribution for Joya de Nicaragua in the United States. We have built on the initial stages of our relation, and we are happy with the way it has gone now, particularly when Switzer has bought that company, Drew Estate. And we don't regret the decision. We think they've done a tremendous effort and continue to build more effort into it. And so we are including it into our celebration.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about, so how were you distributing before? You had in-house sales before 2008?
No. There is
So
a
how was that
long
working?
story. There is a
give us
long
how that
story
happens.
before that, because when I bought the company in 1992, 93. When I bought the company in Nicaragua, the company was not even called Joya de Nicaragua. Joya de Nicaragua had been produced there. The company was called Tabacos Puros de Nicaragua. And what I did at that time is that I bought the company knowing that the brand name Joya de Nicaragua had been registered out of Nicaragua and brought to the United States and registered under another name. So for many years, my struggle when I bought the company was to buy back the brand for the United States. I had the brand for the rest of the world. So in that that period, 1993, 94, my distribution in the United States was very slim. Okay, so it was until 1997 when the owner of the brand at that time finally decided to sit down and negotiate the selling.
So
back.
the owner of Joya de Nicaragua in the United States, in 97, you guys come to an agreement.
Yeah, we came to an agreement. And the story goes is Oppenheimer sells it to Holco Rohr. Holco Rohr sells it to Tabacalera, and Tabacalera sells it back to me. What is Altaris today?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, right. So I don't know if it's worth mentioning it.
No.
But you can erase it.
No, people don't even know.
Yeah, they don't even know. So when I bought that, the distribution, I granted it to a friend of mine from Dominican Republic who had been in the market for many years, Manolo Quesada, and he did from 1997 to 2008 the distribution. It was part of SAG
Imports.
Imports. And he did what he could, But for years I kept on telling Manolo, can I help you? Can I be more present so that Nicaragua will have its own identity too, So it was 2008 when one day I called Jonathan Drew to my office, and I said to Jonathan.
At this point, Jonathan is in Nicaragua.
Jonathan was in Nicaragua, and he wasn't anything of what he is today, by the way, you know. So, Jonathan, I have something I want to discuss with you. What would you think if I told you that I am looking into the capacity that you have as a marketing guy to help me in bringing in Joya de Nicaragua to the U.S. market exclusively? Because the rest, I have my own distribution arrangements. He jumped out of the seat he was sitting. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Are you serious what you are telling me, Dr. Cuenca? Yes, I am serious. Well, let's talk about it, because that is one of my dreams. And that's how we started, thinking about a dream. And 10 years later, I can say, hasn't been that a dream, but has been a very, very good building a relation, a long-term, loyal relation between two companies with their own different identities, but with a common purpose. Bring the cigars with the quality of the cigars that we have to the consumer so that they will enjoy Nicaragua. So he's part of this story. It's part of what we are celebrating in this 50th anniversary. Celebrating the most Nicaraguan cigar, and giving the pieces that make it possible to understand why we feel so proud about it. Not on the name by itself, but on the fact that it has gathered many friends who have collaborated with us, and particularly our workers who are part of our extended family. So we celebrate 50 years of our extended family working all together to make possible to have a cigar of the quality of cigar that we have today, you know. So I think I answered your question, but if you have any further question about how distribution was done.
No, that's a beautiful depiction of what went down there. But no, so this 50 years celebration is a sort of an all-inclusive, right, an all-encompassing celebration. You don't want to just focus on the company or the name or product. Earlier you even mentioned, before we started the interview, you mentioned that it's 50 years of Nicaraguan tobacco. Like you're not just limiting it to Joya de Nicaragua. No. You wanted to include everyone, right? And so
not
that's
only
a beautiful thing.
50 years of Nicaraguan cigar industry starting to become what it is today. Had it not been for those 50 years earlier, had it not been because of Joya, had it not been because of the common effort built into making a cigar that is today around the world, in more than 50 countries in the world today, 50, real. I mean, Joya de Nicaragua is the most, has the largest presence as a brand around the world with the name Nicaragua. And that is recognized by many, many, many people in the world. So we feel that Joya, in this celebration, should not keep itself only to its name or to who initiated it or who is today handling it. We want to make it the celebration of the industry, of making cigars be what they are today in the world. Recognize it, regardless of the name. The Nicaraguan tobacco is today recognized, and the Nicaraguan cigars are recognized as the top kind of cigars in the world. We don't feel less, or we don't feel constrained to say it. We don't envy anyone. We know that in the market, There are other producers, particularly other countries who produce cigars. We respect them very much, be it Cuba, be it Dominican Republic, be it Honduras. But we want to celebrate that. Had it not been because of these 50 years, probably tobacco from Nicaragua would have taken longer to be recognized. It took 50. I think this is what it is.
And so, for a consumer, how is it that you guys are directing a consumer that wants to celebrate these 50 years with you? What is it? I mean, what is the consumer experience like right now?
Okay.
To celebrate these 50 years.
Well, we feel that the celebration should not only be a point in time when you make a big party, where you invite your friends and those who should be there. The celebration should be around product, that as we did with the 45th anniversary, we came out with a cigar. We call it the Cuatro Cinco. No one can argue that it wasn't a good cigar. It was an excellent cigar.
Excellent cigar.
Extraordinary. Imagine what we have ready for the consumers for the 50th anniversary. We will talk about it later, okay? We will sit down later on in the year and you will tell me, once you taste it, whether it deserves what we want to build on that cigar.
Oh, I look forward to that.
Cuatro Cinco was a success. This is going to be something extraordinary, never done before in the factory. And I think we are going to surprise many people.
Well, Cuatro Cinco was a tremendous success, right? It was a limited...
very limited.
A very limited production, and then you ended up having to turn it into a regular production.
A regular production, and it's one of the good selling cigars in the market today in the United States.
Where does it sit right now within your portfolio?
Well, it's very difficult to beat our, ¿cómo se dice en español, en inglés? El caballito de batalla.
A flagship.
The flagship. And the flagship for us is Antaño 1970 in the U.S. market.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to beat that number. But I would say, in terms of the kind of the cigar, let me define it better. In terms of the quality of the tobaccos that are in that cigar, in the Cuatro Cinco, still, it's a fantastic cigar, I think. But still, what we want to give for the 50th anniversary is something even much longer aged, which we have been preparing for it. And not only that, it's a blend which is very unique, and I think people are going to love it. And the following years, we plan to come with a different vitolas of that family.
So, well, that was actually, you're leading me to the next question, which was, what did you learn from the release of Cuatro Cinco, and how has that impacted what you're doing with the 50?
Oh, tremendously. I think our Cuatro Cinco release was a tremendous experience for us because it was the first time in many, many years when we were blending more difficult tobaccos, It's not that we were always doing the easy tobaccos, no. And I don't mean to infer that. But I think the quality of the blend we prepare for Cuatro Cinco, where we even aged in barrels, which I won't say what kind of barrels, Later on, there were many others trying to follow the same thing, which is good.
Of course.
When people try to replicate what you've done well,
absolutely,
it means something is good, and that was good. But we found
it's the highest form of flattery.
It's the highest form of flattery, and should not be offended at all if somebody wants to try to replicate whatever you are doing. But to go on the experience of Cuatro Cinco, first we came with a very limited edition production, because at that time that was the only tobaccos that we had. But obviously, this is a whole process. As time passes, more tobaccos are available that can meet the quality requirement that you imposed on the first one.
Sure.
So as this developed, we were able to come up with a more continuous production of Cuatro Cincos, now not as a limited edition, but as a
reserva especial,
as a special reserve. And what we are expecting is that in this year, you are going to see this new cigar coming up, probably by IPCPR. Is already in the process of finalizing its aging process. We don't want to throw it earlier. We want to do it at IPCPR.
And that's in July.
That's in July. So it's 3 more months or 4 more months. We're going to be there. And also we're planning to bring, since TAA is celebrating their 50th anniversary too, we came to an agreement with them. And please correct me, Daniel, if I don't have all the information, but I understand that it's going to be a special size, which is the size that I like, smoking the Gran Reserva Antaño. Is that correct? That's correct.
So there's going to be a special size
of
the Joya de Nicaragua Antaño Gran Reserva. And that's for TAA to celebrate their 50th.
50th.
And
we will have a series of products coming out as we reached IPCPR dates. In addition to other products and articles that are going to be coming out. I'm in the process of finalizing a book on Joya.
Okay.
And more than Joya, it's going to be about the industry of Nicaragua.
So when can we expect that?
IPCPR.
Also, okay.
IPCPR.
And that book, are you going to make that available to consumers as well, so they'll be able to buy it in their retailer?
They can buy it in Amazon. They can buy it in retail stores that want to sell it.
Beautiful.
And it's a very complete historical review of how the industry of Nicaragua developed.
How the tobacco industry.
The tobacco industry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I take it for granted we're only talking about tobacco.
So now just for the last question here is, what do you see coming for Joya de Nicaragua beyond these 50 years?
Oh,
no,
I don't want to sound arrogant. I am 70 years old now, 71. I want to see the 100 years of Joya de Nicaragua. And I think more than that, I want to see that in the next 50 years, we, rather than struggle to be in the market now, is consolidating these 50 years with quality products that will allow us to get to the 100-year mark. That would be a beautiful dream. I might not see it, but there are many people who are going to see it.
Your son included.
My son, my grandsons, and granddaughters. I have quite a number of them now. So
but in the company,
Juan is running the company.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's going to see it, as I'm seeing my first 50 years of the company.
Well, we look forward to that. Thank you for your time today.
Did I cover everything?
Another question that I think especially Joya de Nicaragua has a history that at least for the last generation has been so tied to the country and to Esteli's history.
Yeah.
How would you say that you have seen, not just Joya, but the cigar industry in general, impact and change Esteli and the broader country?
I mean, that's a fantastic question with which I want to close. The Esteli of today has nothing to do with the Esteli 50 years ago, let alone the Esteli 10 years ago. And you've been to Nicaragua. it's true, construction is going on everywhere in Nicaragua. But if there is a place where things are being really moving very fastly, is Esteli. To the extent that Nicaragua had about 40% unemployment rate years back. There is zero unemployment rate in Esteli. It's the only city of Nicaragua that has zero unemployment rate. In fact, we have always concern about the limitation, and that's one of the constraints of our growth as an industry, because you need to prepare more people that can be rollers, that can be punchers, that can run companies in the cigar business in Esteli, because there is a lack of it, you know. So we feel that if something in these 50 years that we want to recognize is that tobacco changed completely the profile of what a city and an area of Esteli, Jalapa, Ocotal used to have, you know, and that view it comes to your eyes immediately, you know. Still, we need more infrastructure, we need more hotels in Esteli, quality hotel, first-grade hotels, which we don't. The good thing is that most of the consumers or retailers or business people who visit us in Esteli, they also want some traditional things, you know. They don't want the sophistication of coming to a city and everything is 5 stars up.
Yeah, the Alameda has its charm.
Yeah, right. It has its charm, you know. All of the little places you go, and that's part of what the whole thing is all about. So, but I think your question is very, very valid. If there is an industry that really has pushed the country up, it has been tobacco, cigars and tobacco together, but tobacco for cigars mainly, not tobacco for cigarettes or anything else. So that's the story, and I think we cover most of our points. And I want to thank you for coming all the way to the hotel. And we look forward to seeing you in Nicaragua when you come for the pictures and everything else. And thank you for paying attention to Joya.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks to Alejandro for taking the time to do that interview. As always, thanks to you for listening to the Cigar Snob podcast. Make sure that you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. Rate and review us while you're there. And also, you can find episodes of the podcast at cigarsnobmag.com/podcast. That's cigarsnobmag.com/podcast. Share this episode with friends and fellow smokers who you think might be interested in the story. If you're a social media person, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Just search for Cigar Snob Mag, or on Facebook, we're actually Cigar Snob Magazine. Finally, make sure that you send any feedback, questions, or comments to feedback@cigarsnobmag.com. Again, that's feedback@cigarsnobmag.com. Write us whatever the hell it is you want to write us, and we might just respond to you right here on the podcast or in the pages of Cigar Snob Magazine. Again, thanks for listening, and until next time, I'm Nick Jimenez, and this is the Cigar Snob Podcast. At Cigar Snob Magazine, we know that man cannot live on water alone, which is why we keep a healthy stockpile of Zafra rum at the office. I'm Nick Jimenez, senior editor of Cigar Snob Magazine, and I'm here to tell you that every time we crack open a bottle of Zafra rum, we are impressed. In fact, I'm kind of hydrating with Zafra rum right now. It's unlike anything else, in part because of Zafra's small batch approach. They use only hand-cut sugarcane and process it into top-grade molasses, distill in column stills, and ferment in a proprietary locally grown yeast. The rum master then ages the virgin rum in carefully selected bourbon oak casks. The end result is a rum masterpiece that's great for top-shelf cocktails, drinking it on the rocks, or even just drinking it neat, which by the way, is what we did when we paired this in the pages of Cigar Snob magazine with the Oliva Serie B Melanio, but it goes great with just about any cigar. Here's what we had to say about Zafra rum. Quote, the rum introduces smooth, honey, caramel, and molasses flavors that start to complement the coffee, chocolate, and spice from the cigar. Zafra also received an exceptional 95-point rating from the Beverage Tasting Institute, so we are not the only ones who are crazy about this stuff. It's just another one of their prestigious awards. Ask for Zafra rum at your favorite retailer, restaurant, or bar. Make sure you follow them on Facebook and Instagram at Zafra rum. That's Z-A-F-R-A rum. Zafra rum. Always drink responsibly, and remember that there is no rum without Zafra.